The ideas behind empathy, particularly when combined with Stoicism, are not to discount that, are not to be weak, are not to give in to what other people's desires are, but rather to simply better understand and grasp the situation, build more trust in a relationship, and then utilize that trust to gain even more information than you originally had. Now we're getting to the real motives, right? And then use that to the best of your ability in a manner that preserves your integrity to serve your purpose, right? Whatever that might be in a situation. So that's the trick. And it's a little bit of a more challenging game, really, than just win the argument. But it's one we all play every day. And really, I'm just talking about playing with a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more integrity, and a little bit more awareness and intentionality. I have gotten a lot better at knowing which relationships to invest in and which ones to not invest in. I will say I don't love this idea of, oh, this is toxic, I'm going to walk away. I do feel there's a little bit too much readiness for that these days. And
right. Don't cancel me now. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, people don't really stick it out anymore. And, every relationship is full of conflict.
You're listening to Brainwork Framework, a business and marketing podcast, brought to you by focus-biz.com.
Welcome back to another episode. With us today is professor and author at Northwestern School of Law, Shermin Kruse. We're going to be talking today about Stoic empathy, both how it can help improve your personal life and how it can improve your business. Shermin, so excited to have you on. How you doing?
Chris, I am delighted to be on the show. I'm so excited to be speaking with you and speaking with your audience because I understand that y'all are mostly entrepreneurs, marketers, and I am just really, really interested in speaking with you about how Stoicism and empathy and the combination of the two can be helpful to your businesses. I hope I can be value added today, my friend.
Absolutely. And I think you can, because a lot of everything that we do is speaking with people. It's interaction. It's how do we deal with these obstacles or these problems? So to kind of take an approach of Stoicism, I don't think many business owners understand or realize what it is. Can you share more about what it is and how it can help everyday people?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to start with the Stoic part, and then we can move on to the empathy part, although the two are really extremely related. So one of the things that has happened is this 2,300-year-old philosophy and way of being, which is referred to as Stoicism, it has been translated into modern culture in a way that it was really never was and never intended to be. Of course, resilience, it is a massive aspect of Stoic ideology. But there is nothing about Stoic ideology that dictates a lack of emotion. It is really about emotional regulation, especially at a time when emotions are heightened. So the idea behind Stoic resilience is to utilize the tools at your disposal as a Stoic philosopher or as a Stoic student in order to be able to use your emotions as information, as inputs, right? Instead of just straight input to output, instead of letting them become your masters, especially when they really become your masters, which is when you're angry or when you're afraid or when you're anxious or when things are on the rise, right? So when things are heating up, when someone is hostile or aggressive or I'm jealous, the J word, I don't love throwing it around because nobody really wants to talk about their jealousy. Everybody's fine to talk about their fears and anxieties. Nobody wants to talk about their jealousies. It's
The one thing that's taboo now.
I know. Well, I got to say, we're human beings. We experience these emotions, and there's nothing about Stoic ideology that would tell you not to. What Stoic ideology would tell you to do is to observe the emotion, right? Be in control of how you respond despite and sometimes because of the emotion. Do not allow the emotion to become your master. You are the master. You have willpower. And in fact, Stoicism will go a step further and say there's very few things in this world that you can actually control. Very few things. External events mostly are actually beyond your control. What you can control, or at least fully control, is your judgments, your thoughts, and the way you express your feelings. And so it is kind of an extraordinary way of discovering that space between stimuli and response. Stimuli, the act that made you upset, made you angry, whatever it was that aroused these emotions inside of you. And you want to scream, or you want to punch a wall, or you want to do something inappropriate, or you want to do something that would harm you in this setting. And then there is the response, right? Which hopefully is something that you chose. And maybe that is to scream, but it is because you chose that option and not because you were impulsively reacting to a stimuli. Thus, it is likely not a scream. But again, it might be. I mean, there's really nothing about Stoicism that tells you don't yell, don't shout, don't dance, don't laugh, don't love. These are all wonderful things. You just want to make sure that you're stepping into them cognitively aware, with intention, so that you're showing up as the person you want to be, so that 10 minutes later, an hour later, 3 days later, you don't say to yourself, I should have done this, or I really shouldn't have said that, right? Or I didn't know this was going to happen, when it was actually entirely predictable, right? So let's help you expand that space between stimuli and response so that you can create a more informed emotive response, right? Amidst the strong emotion itself. That is the type of regulation that is Stoicism, which always has on top of it also ideas of justice and fairness and equity and things like that as well. So that's basically what ancient Stoicism really is. Again, it does have an aspect of being in control of yourself. Now you can see how sort of relating it to customer service relationships or marketing plans, or, there are so many times when something stirs within us, within a conversation, within a dialogue, within a business situation, within a negotiation, right? And we need to stay in control. And that is where Stoicism comes in.
Oh, absolutely. And I think for myself, a lot of business owners, we've gotten caught up in those emotions before and have reacted to something and probably regretted it later.
Well,
Some
we all
special
have.
words that always stood out to me were be curious before you get furious, which kind of creates a position of asking more questions and having curiosity about the situation as opposed to the reaction phase of that. But all that reaction, I feel like people need to focus on what is the end goal? What are you hoping to get out of this? Are you just trying to feel better and say some mean words, or are you trying to save this relationship or the conversation? Where do you want to go from here? And I think that can really tie into people focusing on, okay, let me be a little more emotionally mature, intelligent with it, so that way I can just have a better reaction to everything in this world.
Exactly. And this is actually where the tie-in to empathy works really well. And actually my book, Stoic Empathy, sort of starts with, which is, look, empathy is a spectrum. One, emotional empathy, which is your pain in my heart. This is how I might respond to my partner, to my mother, to my child, right? And then on the other end of it is purely cognitive, which is I'm not going to walk in your shoes, but I'm going to smell what you smell, hear what you hear, see what you see, feel what you feel, so that I can better understand your perspective. And in between these two is a massively long spectrum. And here's why it's important. If I am your surgeon and you are rolled in with 7 bullet wounds, the last thing you want me to do is to cry over your dying body. You want me to rush you into the OR.
Please fix
Do what
me.
right? And do what I can to repair your body. Likewise, if I am a hostile counterpart who really does not have your best interests at heart, you don't really want to be feeling my feelings, but you do want to understand them. You do want to grasp them, right? So that you can craft a response that most appropriately assists you in this negotiation, right? So the idea is that we want to use Stoicism and Stoic tools of self-regulation to enable us to move back and forth in this spectrum of cognitive to emotional, because really nobody's ever fully cognitive. We're not robots. And if you're fully emotional, you collapsed a long time ago. And y'all know, and y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes you're in a relationship that starts more cognitive and then becomes more emotional. Sometimes somebody will say something that will immediately shut you down and you'll suddenly become much more cognitive. And you'll know exactly what I'm saying. You've been there. The idea, though, is just to give it labels, give it terms, give it tools, give it practices, become intentional about it, and practice it on a a daily basis.
Absolutely. And one thing that you mentioned here in your bio is it's less about the self-help and more about self-governance. And I think that's just an interesting way to take a new angle at that approach.
Yeah. And I think I come at this just as an American and being in a position where I have a really international background and my family works for the UN. And I just really have a perspective on this golden passport that is the American passport, right? I mean, this thing that I'm telling you, warts and all, almost everybody in the world wants. They do. This is where they want to be. And there's a reason for that. And we're the recipients of that. And being at the center of it all, with that power also comes great responsibility. So the question is, what is my responsibility, not just towards my family, which obviously it's easier for me to grasp, or my community, which might be a little harder for me to grasp, right? Or my customers, which is sort of moderately easy for me to grab, right? But also with the globe, right? With the nation, with my legacy, what is my responsibility? And this kind of power that we have that allows us to govern ourselves in a situation where our political power is significantly more extended. No, you and I might disagree about our politics, or you might land left of me or right of me. You're probably going to land right of me because I'm pretty left. It's pretty hard to land left of me. But nevertheless, we need to sort of acknowledge that at the end of the day, our political power here is different. You know, I come from Iran. It's different than the political power a lot of people have. Economic power, right? Even those below our poverty spectrum have an economic power that is far beyond that most of the world's poor and working poor. And so just that recognition, and then the governance that goes into that recognition. And it's a very, very empowering state to be in. This idea that, wait, yes, there's a lot of things outside of my control. And I happen to have more external control than a lot of other people. And I have this thing that kind of everybody has, but I'm really in tune with it, which is my willpower, right? Or if you're a person of faith, my soul, or if you're not, my mind, or whatever it might be, right? And I can control that within this larger area of external control that I have to expand my external sphere of control, to expand my influence, and to leave my mark in this world in an intentional manner that preserves my dignity, right? And preserves my authentic sense of self.
That is huge. It's really impactful, especially in the world of politics right now, where it seems like everything is kind of in tension. We're on edge here, and we kind of react emotionally. And both sides at the same time are kind of thinking, well, why can't you just see it from the logical side, or you put yourself in my shoes? And there's just an extreme disconnect. But I think we have a lot more in common in general about just wanting to help our everyday people, our community members. But it's just different on what that looks like. But I feel like if we had a better way of communicating, understand, and regulating our own emotions, that conversation would look totally different today. And I don't think things would be as tense.
I mean, that's certainly what I believe. I think that at a minimum, it allows you to communicate in a way that is more productive than you might otherwise have. I don't know if it's going to solve all of the world's problems, but the goal, I don't think, is to propose a solution that will solve all of the world's problems, but to work incrementally within our lifetime in improving and advancing the direction that we are moving, right? What is my role? I have control over me. I get this one life, right? Whether you believe in an afterlife or not, this life, there's only one of it, right? I get to live this life. And then either I die, I'm dead, nothing happens, or I'm judged by how I live this life, right? Depending on what your faith system is. And so I get this one life. What am I going to do with this? And how am I going to bend this world? And the idea of making it a little bit more like this, or at least my immediate sphere, or my family, or at least the way I run my business, or respond to my employees, right? Especially if you're a small business, because you know all of your employees, you know all of their names, you know all of their wives and husbands, you know their kids' names. You know what I mean? The small business folks, they're not your friends in a traditional sense, but they're people you feel a personal sense of responsibility to. It's really different when you're the CEO of an organization with 58,000 employees, right? None of whose names you know. It's at 10 people, 12 people, 20 people working at your company that you build with your hands from scratch, or has been in your family, or you took over in a really difficult negotiation. And you know these folks, so you can at least have some control in their lives. right? And in the lives of their progeny following them. And so the idea of being able to sort of move yourself in that direction, that's all we have. And I think sometimes people get caught up in the, well, that's not going to fix anything, right? I just think just because you're not fixing everything, it doesn't mean you're not fixing anything. And really, at
Hmm.
the end of the day, what is most relevant to you is what you have done. And so I want you to walk away from a conversation knowing that A, you did care in a manner that was appropriate, and B, that you behaved responsibly and that you were able to have sufficient control over yourself to behave responsibly in that situation. Sometimes that means walking out. Sometimes it means sticking it out. Right? I'm not here to be anyone's moral judge. I'm not here to tell anybody when to stand up, when to sit down, when to walk out. I just want you to do what you really believe is the right thing for you to do, no matter how angry you are in that moment.
That is really huge. And in your experience, teaching as a professor, has there been any sort of like aha moment when it comes to like either the way that you're teaching or the way you present information or the way that it's learned and absorbed by a different generation here?
That's a really interesting question. So I am a law professor here at in Chicago. I teach at Northwestern Pritzker School of Law. I also am a TED Talk producer. I've produced about 80 TED and TEDx talks. So I'm accustomed to relaying information, right, to either small or really large groups of people. And I would say these ideas hold really well. A, you want to have an empathic awareness of your audience, right? That empathic awareness can be emotional depending on the circumstances, if they're your kids or your best friends or even an intimate small seminar classroom of students who are glued to every word you're saying amidst political turmoil in your country and sort of needing some guidance from you, right? But it can also be much more cognitive if you're creating a TEDx video, which is essentially a short film that's hopefully going to be consumed by tens, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. That requires a very different kind of empathy. That doesn't require an emotional connection, which each person who's going to view your film. It's more, what is it that I can use, right? What demonstratives are at my disposal to relay an idea, and how will this idea benefit and help these people? So I need to have an understanding of them so that I can better understand how my idea can benefit them so that I can present it in accordance with that. And then think about that in a customer relations context. Understanding your customer, but not just your customer, understanding your competitor, right? Understanding your hostile counterpart. And then also take it in with your business partner or your life partner. How many times are we in an argument with our spouse and we're really thinking about how to win the argument, right? I mean, high school debate was really fun, but I'm not 16 anymore. Yeah. I
Right.
mean,
It needs to evolve.
it might be interesting to win the argument, but where's it really going to get me in the context of this relationship?
Right. Yeah. You can't tell your partner meets you outside of the flagpole. That just doesn't translate anymore. They don't get it.
First met my husband when we were first dating. He's a numbers guy and I'm a
Mhm.
logic person. So he was like, how about this? We alternate. Every other argument, we fight using logic. But every other argument, we fight using one-on-one basketball because that makes it fair. And then at some point, I actually realized, yeah, I'm being ridiculous. It's really not about me demonstrating my argument prowess in this relationship. It's about me trying to understand where this person who I actually love and have spent 20 years of my life with and have 4 children with, where's he coming from? What are the legitimate aspects of his interests? Where do we align? Where can we find common ground? How do we build forward from here? How do I make sure I preserve equity for myself, of course, but also while preserving what I really want, which is this bigger picture, right? And
Mhm.
when is it time for me to walk away? Because it's not worth it. And that evaluation also is an aspect of it. It's an aspect of our business relationships and it's an aspect of our personal relationships as well. And I do not discount that. The ideas behind empathy, particularly when combined with stoicism, are not to discount that, are not to be weak, are not to give in to what other people's desires are, but rather to simply better understand and grasp the situation, build more trust in a relationship, and then utilize that trust to gain even more information than you originally had. Now we're getting to the real motives, right? And then use that to the best of your ability in a manner that preserves your integrity to serve your purpose, whatever that might be in a situation. So that's really the trick. And it's a little bit of a more challenging game, really, than just win the argument. But it's one we all play every day. And really, I'm just talking about playing with a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more integrity, and a little bit more awareness and intentionality.
Absolutely. Do you find that your relationships and partnerships now, just because of that better communication, they're healthier, they're just a bit more flexible?
Yes. And I would also say that I have gotten a lot better at knowing which relationships to invest in and which ones to not invest in. I will say I don't love this idea of, well, this is toxic, I'm going to walk away. I do feel there's a little bit too much readiness for that these days. And
Right. Don't cancel me now. Yeah.
yeah, I know, right? I mean, people don't really stick it out anymore. And, every relationship is full of conflict. Let me tell you, that's what relationships create. They create conflict because the more you interact with someone, the more conflict you have with them. So that the closer you are with someone, the more conflict you have. Please don't forget that. And, right, it does take a certain level of wisdom to know this is valuable for the following reasons. I want to preserve this for the following reasons. Here's what I'm willing to do, right? Just like you would in a business negotiation. A communication is the same. Here's what I'm willing to give up. Here's what's worth it to me. And here's what's not. And sort of knowing where those lines are. And in the context of a business relationship, you wouldn't necessarily walk out the door because somebody asked something of you that you were unwilling to give under all circumstances, right? You would say no, but you wouldn't necessarily walk out the door. But there are some things that would make you walk out. So really, that's what I'm talking about. I just want you to take that space, take that breath, and have that awareness to know the difference for yourself between these situations, make judgments accordingly, especially in the moment, which, by the way, we've all reacted in ways we regret. I mean, we've all said things that we don't think we should have said or done things we don't think we should have done, or people just don't get how funny we are. I mean, that's
Usually the last one, yeah. We just don't get our humor, right?
It's not my fault. They can't
They
take a
don't
joke.
get it.
So, yeah. So, I mean, listen, we've all been there. But know your audience before you make your joke, man. And if your joke doesn't land properly, you learn something.
Time
And
to move on, you know?
it-
They don't get me. No, just kidding. Just move on beyond the joke. Don't stick with it, you know?
yeah, don't push it, right? Or at least learn, okay, what clues did I have about how receptive this person would have been to this type of dark humor? I say this as someone with very dark humor. I've run into this problem in the past.
It's the best kind. I feel like the more emotionally intelligent and communicative people are really just beyond on their humor. The things that are funny, the way that they can make a situation hilarious to themselves,
Yeah.
other people appreciate it too.
I agree. And I also think, and this is unrelated to Stoic empathy, but I think as a general matter, life is so absurd that if you can't take the time to laugh every once in a while at absurdity, I mean, I'm older than you, so I grew up in a Monty Python world, sort of, I will say South Park is the new Monty Python. It's very vulgar. It's significantly more vulgar than Monty Python. Well, I actually don't know if it's significantly more vulgar than
Now that I think about it.
But listen, I have a hard time sitting through a South Park episode, but there's something about that type of satire, that type of complete and utter horrific absurdity that is reflective of the world. And sometimes you just gotta laugh at it. I'm not telling your audience to watch South Park. I'm just saying, for me personally, it helps me get through the day sometimes.
I agree. Yeah, it's like we can't just dwell on this negativity. Something so absurd that comes across our feed. We just okay, is this real? I just can't help but laugh a little bit. Kind of helps. Maybe it's a coping mechanism that we have, and just helps us process and take direction from it.
I agree. I think it also helps us take things with a grain of salt. One of the things that we teach in Stoic philosophy is memento mori, which is remember you will die. which sounds really dark, but actually is not. It really means remember that you're not dead yet, which means you're alive. And eventually you will die. So whatever space and time you have in this body in this moment is finite and it will end, and it hasn't ended yet. And the observance of that, the reminder of that, something that really helps us view things with a little bit more perspective, right? Because things are funnier when you take a step back. Absurdities are funnier when you see them as just one thing that is happening in the grand scheme of your entire life. And so when you take that step back, you just gain a different kind of perspective. And that perspective, by the way, might allow you to see it for what it really is, which might not be funny at all. And for you to be able to really tell that, because you now have that perspective and you're not lost in the weeds of the moment. But being able to sort of take that step back and evaluating the situation from 100,000 feet is such a helpful thing to do. And the reminder of our impending death, again, it sounds really dark.
She's going deep right away. Yeah.
I
I'm all for it.
I know. You guys, before we got on, Chris said to me, listen, I'm going to jump right into the meat and potatoes, but I don't think he meant, Sher, let's talk about our impending death today
Right.
during the podcast.
No, I'm all for it. I used to work at a hospice center, and I swear that just the people who work there, the most kind-hearted, loving people, but we had such a dark sense of humor. Like that's how we coped with just the
Yeah.
realities of life. So yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. And the reality is that if it wasn't for death, right, life would have very little meaning at all. Or as Shakespeare said, if every day were holiday, to sport would be as tedious as to work. The ancient Christians had an ideology of Christianity, of heaven, that involved like literally physically being up here and having a full view of hell. Like back in the years of St. Augustine, you could look down and look at hell. Why? Because the idea was, unless I could see the alternative, I would be bored to tears with my heaven. I don't mean that to be disrespectful to anyone's faith. I just mean that is the way the interpreters of the faith understood teaching it to others, because they knew of the human condition, which is, it is the end of something or the alternative to something that gives value to it. And it's this really kind of extraordinary thing about the way humans are and the way they live and act and die. I find memento mori is now something that I see young kids. If you're in your 20s, you're a kid. I'm sorry, you're not really, but to me, you could be my kids. So
Right.
a lot of people have it tattooed on their neck, right? Memento mori. It's like a very, very popularized item now, or on their finger or their wrist or something like that. I was just carried a coin in my pocket, a memento mori coin, a skull coin. It's actually a traditional Roman coin. And it always reminds me, and whenever I get really angry or really upset or a little jealous, when I'm coveting something that someone else has, I touch the coin, or I get reminded of the moment, and I come back to my value system, and I come back to what really matters to me. What do I want it to say in my obituary when I die? What do I really want it to say? Is it going to say that? And in this moment, how can I behave in a way that would maximize the likelihood that it would say that?
Right.
And for me, just to have sort of like that physical reminder is really good. And I do think it also helps you laugh at the absurdities a little bit too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We kind of have to nowadays. I feel like it just helps us cope and get by. I'm gonna have a couple more questions for you, but I want to ask, where can people find you and connect with you online?
So this book, you guys, has me on a book tour that basically I have run ragged for 6 months. I'm exhausted. And as a result, I am nauseatingly everywhere. So just Google my name. I'll come up everywhere. The book can be bought anywhere that books are sold. I do have most of my social media work is on Instagram and LinkedIn. I have a website, sherminkruse.com, or you can go to stoicempathy.com. You know, I have a soft spot for entrepreneurs. So I have a soft spot for small business bookshops. So if you want to go to one of those guys and buy the book, that's great. I also am a mom of 4 and have a full-time job or 2 or 3. And so sometimes you just need to press that button and have Jeff Bezos deliver your stuff to your door. And I get that. So I'm accessible to you Also, if you don't want to buy the book, there's a lot of free material online. If you just Google my name, there's a lot of videos, there's a lot of material out there. Really, at the end of the day, my goal, pure and simple, is really in line with the message I write in the book, which is hopefully I'm behaving in a manner that contributes to the world in a positive way. Hopefully I'm controlling my space, my time in a way that feels mostly good. It's usually more of a tightrope act, right? You're very wobbly, but as long as you're sort of staying on the rope, you're doing all right. And every once in a while, as long as there's a net,
Somebody catch me.
you're hanging in. Yeah, you're still alive.
Everything's okay.
Get back on the rope. Yeah, so that's my goal here. And if there's any way I can be of service to your audience, you guys reach out to me on social media and let me know. I sometimes it takes me a while to get back to folks, but I will get back to you.
Oh, that's all right. There's plenty of great educational content and material out there. Many of your TEDx talks, I probably have seen you before, or either did or didn't recognize, but very excited to dive back into those topics because I just love hearing and just learning more. We're going to have the links available down in the show notes and the description for everyone to get connected and find your book. What are you looking forward to wrap up 2025? Sounds like you're super busy. You got the book tour, you're doing teaching, and it's going to be a part of the curriculum and material now. What's going to be next for 2026? What are you kind of working towards here?
Wow. Okay, so I do have 2 more book proposals coming out. I was approached by an education company and asked to write a children's book on Stoicism, which will be an interesting and new challenge. And I also have decided I'm going to go back to MMA. I did a lot of MMA for a while, and then I got old and I forgot that I was old and I didn't pull my punches, so I wrecked all of my joints. But I've decided to go back to jujitsu because I think that will work well even with my messed up old people joints. So I think I'm going to go back to MMA. I'm going to go specifically into jujitsu and maybe a little bit of boxing. So I'm excited about that. It's always fun to get punched
Wow.
in the face.
Like, I'm looking forward to that. I want to get punched in the
Oh,
face.
you never look forward to getting punched in the face, but you do kind of look forward to collecting yourself after that punch in the face. Like, knowing that, hey, even if you punch me in the face, I'm going to keep my stuff together is a really empowering feeling. And I think for me, being in the ring does about the same as meditation. I'm also a big meditator. Meditation does the same thing, but it's just a much more physical reminder of it's in my control. It's in my control. Yeah.
It's the wide spectrum of just meditation and feeling better. Some people are like, I need to find my inner peace and my calm, and sometimes you
Yeah.
just got to punch something.
Sometimes you got to get punched and figure
Sometimes,
out
yeah.
how to be calm in response. Yeah. I mean, that's life. I feel like you get gut punched and stabbed in the back and thrown around a lot in this world. And sometimes without any expectation, at least when you're in a ring, you're protected and you've got your headgear and your mouth gear and you're expecting a spar. Sometimes you're not. And it comes out of nowhere. And so I think being able to figuratively catch yourself in that moment and make sure that even in that moment, you can't control whether someone else is going to betray you, but you can control how you respond, and you can appropriately measure your response based on the responsibilities that are in front of you, the motives and desires that you have.
I absolutely love that. I just wanted to comment real quick. I would love just a book towards the end of your series of what you're doing. Just the mannerisms, the funny dark humor that you have. Like, sometimes you just got to get in the ring and get punched. Like, what people can learn from that. Like, just a big book, like a big calendar. I need a calendar where I can just pop open a day and
I
get some
love
of
it.
your
I
wise
love it.
wisdom.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Let's make it happen. You can be my calendar producer. Do people still
Hey, you
make
got it.
calendars? I don't think, is that still a thing? Like, do
You
people
know,
still?
there's got to be. And if it's not physical, it's probably a digital app where you could just get
Right.
in the page pops open and
Yeah.
then has all your wise words of wisdom there. So
My Yogi Berra words of
yeah,
wisdom.
yeah, that is incredible.
Well, thank you
Shermin,
so much.
any last words you want to share for just our audience here? Just wanted to give you the floor before we wrap up.
I appreciate it. What my last words always are is please have grace with yourself. Please forgive yourself. The reality is that we all fail, we all fall, we all say things we didn't mean, do things we didn't mean. We all make mistakes. And the reality is that You do want to evaluate your mistakes, because if you're unwilling to acknowledge and evaluate them, then you're probably a psychopath. But you don't want to get stuck in them. The idea isn't to punish yourself for the rest of your life because you could have done that, or you could have done this, or you should have done that. The idea is you have the rest of your life to live, and now you know this, right? You know it. So what does this mean for the next conversation and the one after that? The arrow left your bow, hit the target, didn't get it exactly the way you wanted it to. You can't change that, but you can learn from that shot for the next arrow and the next one and the next one. And that is the thrill. There's always a next one. So look at it, learn from it. Please don't get stuck in it. Any mistake that you've made, any terrible thing that you've done, you can evaluate and improve upon. There's always another chance to make it better.
I love it. Thank you so much for everything. We appreciate it. We're definitely going to have you back on for your next book, your next series. Let me know when your children book drops and all the other exciting things that you're doing. Congratulations to you.
Thanks so much, Chris. I appreciate it. And thanks so much to your audience. You guys are amazing. Thanks for letting me chat with you for a while.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. Thank you.